Hello, this is Ringo from 7 Education, and today I'm going to go over some theory of knowledge question. To find out more about us, please visit this website right here. Alright, so today we're going to go over the first prescribed title in the May 2016 TOK questions. So the first question we look at is this one. Alright, so how are we going to tackle this problem? We are going to use different perspective in looking and understanding this question. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to have some ideas in how you can tackle this question. And remember, these perspectives could be generated or modified into your knowledge question, which is essential for any TOK questions. Alright, okay, for the first perspective is this. Think about ways of knowing as, picking grapes, alright, picking cherries, something along that line. So it's the idea that it really depends on the individual. It depends on the individual and how they choose to pick which ways of knowing that they want to put in that basket. So sometimes the same knowledge could be gained through different ways of knowing, depending on the individual. So one individual may choose sense perception and emotion in gaining some knowledge, whereas another individual may choose memory, language, and faith to gain the same knowledge. So this is the first perspective, which is the idea that, it really depends on the personal knowledge in which the ways of knowing we choose. Second perspective. Is there one way of knowing that is more important than the others? So that is something that you have to consider. A lot of students ask me, is sense perception the most essential way of knowing, which can affect everything? So with this sense perception, all the network of ways of knowing will build around this. So, you could argue whether it is or it is not, all right? Because that can answer the question, can we use, one way of knowing in generating knowledge? So the third perspective. So can we only use one way of knowing in generating or in gaining knowledge? Well, think of it this way, you're learning things in school. I'm pretty sure there are times when you learn something in school, the teacher taught it to you, but you just don't remember it, or you just forgot about it, or you just don't understand it. It doesn't mean that you did not gain that knowledge. It just means you don't retain it, you don't understand it, and you have no application or implication of it. But, in a way, you still gain that knowledge. So you could argue just by listening as a way of knowing, or the sense perception of listening as a way of knowing, you did gain the knowledge. Period. That's all. All right. So the fourth perspective. The idea that this follows up with the third perspective, is gaining knowledge a passive process, or is it an actively seeking process? If you believe that gaining knowledge could be seen as something passive, then yes, using sense perception can help you gain knowledge. But if you're actively seeking for knowledge or actively seeking to validate these knowledge, then you would need to rely on some sort of network ways of knowing, and you have to kind of keep in check with the different ways of knowing. So for example, you see something using sense perception, and you use reasoning to understand it, and basically you test out that reasoning, and that feeds back into more sense perception. So, in the areas of science, natural science, we do see a lot of these ideas in the idea that we try to validate our knowledge to, refine or to understand that knowledge better. Okay, fifth perspective. Fifth and final perspective that I want to talk about is that, maybe some individual use the same network ways of knowing, they gain the same knowledge, but their interpretation of that knowledge and the application that they produce may be very different. So again, this really feeds back into the first perspective of individual differences or personal knowledge. How each individual are unique, and even if, they thought about the same thing, they produce the same knowledge, how they use that knowledge could be very different. So this is like a little, a further extended perspective, because the question only asks you in gaining knowledge. But the argument here is that you can say that, we may gain the same initial knowledge, but the development of that new knowledge may depend on the interpretation of the individuals. Alright, so I hope you guys find this video useful, and don't forget to visit our website at here. And also remember, I'm Ringo from 7 Education. Alright, see you guys.